Welcome to Fear and Greed, the Sunday edition. It's the 28th of November 2021 and I'm Sean Aylmer. This is our Sunday show where we have a light to look at what's gone on during the week. We take a view on some of our favourite stories, a bit of a change of pace really. As always, I'm joined by the Fear and Greed team. Adamski, Adam Lang, good morning.
Good morning, Sean.
Mickey T, Michael Thompson, good morning.
Hello, Sean.
Michael, I just want to quickly check, have you done research for today's show?
Oh, I've just done a little bit. Have you done any research today, Sean?
Just a touch, not a lot.
Okay.
Adamski.
Adam,
Yes,
any notes today?
just a couple.
Just for context, every week there is a shared document that we just put a couple of points down that we'd like to discuss. And I typically will just do a line and Sean will do a couple of words, even less than that. And last week, Adam, you only put one line or two lines in there, and I thought you must have been unwell. And I'm glad to see this week you have, in fact, recovered, because there is 2.5, nearly 3 pages of notes this week on the topics you wish to cover.
I think that's about right.
In unrelated news, this podcast will go for 4 hours.
What I love, Michael, is when you look at Adam's notes, and so he's talking about cryptocurrencies in the Bank for International Settlements, something we'll get into later on. And he says, the head office in Basel, he's got pronounced Basel. And then you go down and you talk about Benoit Quer, who's the head of the BIS Innovation Hub.
Oh, no, Sean.
Oh, go on.
Coer.
And he's spelt it out phonetically. You and I are so underprepared for this show, Mickey, compared to Adamski.
I think the technical term for what we're doing, Sean, is winging it. But fortunately, in Mr. Benoit Coer, that's butchered. I think we have the makings of a safe word there for Adam.
Benoit.
No, I'm going to suggest an alternate safe word, and that's the word we need in case the topics get a little confrontational, or indeed we get into territory that we don't want to. Hawaii is going to be my safe word of the week suggestion, and the reason for that is after nearly 2 years, the PM had to address this again this week to clarify the communications he'd made around his famous or infamous family summer holiday. So I'm suggesting Hawaii.
What I like about that story, I'm happy to go Hawaii. I didn't realise that the leader of the opposition and the Prime Minister would text each other so regularly.
Little cheerio.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm off.
Do you reckon they send emojis?
The poo emoji.
A couple of eggplants here or there.
Oh, God.
Not eggplants.
Already we're invoking the safe word.
Hawaii? Benoit?
I'm happy with Benoit. It's a nice name.
Benoit Coer. How do you do that pronunciation?
Benoit Coer.
Thanks. Any audience feedback, Mickey?
A couple of pieces, actually. There was one from a gentleman by the name of Andrew who said, thank you, Fear and Greed, for the work you put into your daily podcast. He's clearly not referring to you and me, Sean, on the Sunday show. I'm a massive fan. Not only is it topical and entertaining, I always come away feeling smarter and more informed than I was before going into each episode. The interviews are crackers too. Keep up the awesome work, fellas. Oh, thank you, Andrew.
That is great.
That's a ripper.
Yeah.
Another one as well from Ronnie, who says, how good is the new logo? I love it. And so Ronnie is referring to the new artwork that features all 3 of us with half of our faces stripped away.
Lovely. I've been putting up with that now for about 18 months. You two get the same treatment. Good.
Bit of a fresh coat of paint for the podcast.
That's right. Let's move on to the newsletter. Adamski, what was your favourite newsletter moment this week?
Oh, definitely Wednesday, and that was this campaign championed by a number of people, including Gus Warland, who hosts a series called Man Up, and he also has a foundation, a mental fitness foundation called Gotcha for Life. And they've done a video, and the title of it is Boys Do Cry, and it's a remake of the great Cure song from the 80s, Boys Don't Cry. But the video link in Wednesday's newsletter is a ripper. And if you can't find it there, look it up. It's well worth a watch.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. That's the standout for me for the week. I found, again, going down the rabbit hole, I started there and then I started wandering through YouTube to where it took me. I ended up watching Father Ray Kelly perform a wedding about 6 years ago and sing his own version of Alleluia, which I think may even, Adamski, you'll fix me up here, but is that a Leonard Cohen written piece, Alleluia? And Jeff Buckley really made it very famous.
Yeah, it's a Leonard Cohen piece.
Yeah. Anyway, Father Ray Kelly singing Alleluia at a wedding in Ireland about 6 years ago. So that's where that Boys Do Cry took me. But what an incredible piece of work. I know the guys who did the creative behind that, really, really good individuals. And it's just wonderful to see.
The cause, of course, is around men's mental health, and the statistics are really quite shocking. 2,384 men have taken their own lives in the last 12 months in Australia. And so it's something that I think if you discover a bit beyond the song, there's a real story behind this campaign.
Yeah, definitely. Mickey, anything to add to that?
No, I completely agree. I thought that was a fantastic video and a really good cause to get behind. There are a few other bits and pieces in the newsletter this week that I enjoyed. I love a good mystery, and this week we included some info in the newsletter, which you can find at fearandgreed.com.au. And it's been 50 years this week since the D.B. Cooper mystery in the US. And so for anyone who's not familiar with that, this was the bloke who hijacked a plane, made them land it, got it refueled to fly to Mexico, got parachutes, got a whole bunch of cash brought on board. The moment the plane took off, he parachuted out into a storm and has never been seen again since. And so it is just one of those stories that just has kind of everything, and there's speculation today still about who that might have been and whether he survived that. And so that was one story. The other one was actually a story that attempted to make it into the newsletter, but didn't, because I exercised my power of veto over it. And it was going to be an entry in the Curious Sean section, and it had the heading of the greatest jazz session ever, which, as I insisted to Adam, that was a very low bar that it was actually trying to reach there. And it included the words, if you're feeling ready for a little Friday jazz, try Charlie Parker, now's the time. I'm never going to be ready for a little Friday jazz. And on behalf of everyone who does not really enjoy jazz, I made the decision, potentially controversial, to remove that from the newsletter. So you may not have noticed that, Adam, but I'm sorry it didn't make it in.
Of course, I did notice, Michael, and I just must say it is your loss.
Oh.
Well, you then actually attempted to educate me in the way of jazz, and you sent me a link saying, start with this. And so I clicked on the link, and I got a minute and a half in. And then I looked, and there was still another kind of 7 or 8 or 9 minutes to go. And I'm like, I haven't been able to pick out where this song's going. That doesn't appear to be where's the chorus? Where's Barry Gibb and his brothers and their soaring harmonies? And I thought, no, you know what? Jazz, it's not for me.
Oh, again, I think that speaks for itself.
I've got to sort of agree with Michael on this. I really struggle with jazz. I know everyone that's cool likes it.
There's my challenge. I need to find some musical lily pads to get you both interested in jazz. Challenge accepted.
Mind you, Adam, and this is a carry-on from last week's conversation where we started the idea who's best, David Bowie, Freddie Mercury or Prince, and basically Michael's response was, well, David Bowie's the best of a bad bunch, which we were outraged at quite rightly, and we called Mickey an idiot. However, Michael is a big fan of Barry Gibb, and that's fair enough. Horses for courses. Certainly. And you admitted this week, Adam, that Jive Talking might be one of the 10 great songs of all time. Now, Jive Talking being a Bee Gees hit, which presumably was written by Barry Gibb.
Well, yeah, and so I think that's a ripper of a song. Jive Talking probably could be in my top 10 singles of all time. Certainly top 10 Australian singles of all time. Great song.
Oh, yeah, but you shouldn't qualify it by saying top 10 Australian singles. How many jazz numbers are in the top 10 Australian singles?
Michael, you're quite the purist, aren't you? So it can't just be top 10 Australian. It has to be top 10 worldwide.
That's right. Look, if you're going to support Barry and his brothers, you should be proud to do it globally and not just say that.
International.
So anyway, look, I think we can probably safely move on from this because I suspect so. Adam is going to probably start the education process now, and I don't want to subject people.
That's where I'd hear my voice fade down in the recording, I suspect.
That's right. Suddenly Adam just disappears entirely.
And Ad appears. We don't know why. Let's look at Adam's copious notes. So I'm on page 17 here. Yep. The debate on cryptocurrencies. We better start there since we have mentioned them already. Adamski. Pretty big week, really. It's really split financial markets, hasn't it? Whether or not cryptocurrencies not just are worth investing in, but actually their place in financial markets.
Yeah, totally. So I do think they're worth investing in, and I know that probably everyone listening will have a position on this dependent on whether they have invested, say, a year ago in cryptocurrencies or not. And so I fall in the latter category, always being a bit wary of them. So my basic premise on this is I think central banks need to step in. Sean, you and Michael have covered a lot the debate this week on where cryptocurrencies are falling, different financial institutions. The Reserve Bank claims they're a fad. Commonwealth Bank says they're major risk, but they're going to facilitate cryptocurrency trading through their CBA wallets. Financial Services Minister Jane Hume has rejected the Reserve Bank's position and said that we, Australia, will risk losing out if we don't embrace cryptocurrencies. And so there's various big institutions, Host Plus saying they'll support it, Australian Super saying that they won't. There's lots of discussion on this topic. And of course, in my research into the area, I found something that I think deserves a little more exposure, and that is...
I'm sure. This isn't the Prime Minister of... Where was it, Michael, during COP26?
It was a Caribbean nation.
You know, it was Adam's favourite moment of COP26.
Top pick. Absolutely. Yeah. Stand by it.
I can feel that we're going down this path again.
Now, well, look, that speech was only 8 minutes long, which is also one of my favourites. I'll try and keep mine to 8 minutes. But the Bank for International Settlements didn't know a lot about it, established in 1930 in...
Benoit.
As you might imagine, head office is in Basel in Switzerland. It's owned by 63 central banks around the world, including the Reserve Bank Australia, and the countries of those banks represent 95% of the world GDP. So
now, did you know, Adam, that before Wayne Byers got the job at the Australian Prudential Regulation Authority, he's chair of APRA, the Prudential Regulator, he worked at BIS. He worked at the Bank for International Settlements.
So we've got one here who's got experience in the realm. So their mission is to support central banks' pursuit of monetary and fiscal stability, and they aim to do that through international cooperation and really act as a bank for the central banks. So Benoit Kerr...
By the way, that was just the introductory part of this conversation.
Yes. Benoit Kerr... So he
Sorry? Who?
Benoit Kerr.
Accidental triggering of the safe word here.
No, I'm not. He's the head of the innovation hub of the BIS, the Bank for International Settlements, and he made a speech about really the central banks of the world should prepare the ground for digital cash, a central bank digital currency, so CBDC. So his position is basically that the central bank money has unique advantages. It's got safety, liquidity and integrity. And as our economies go digital, which of course they will, and they must continue to benefit from the advantages of that money is at the heart of the system and it's got to be issued and controlled by trusted and accountable institutions, that is the central banks. And so it seems to be, you know, Sean, you were talking about in the Saturday show about the quiet around James Packer and what he might do with Crown. It seems to me that the BIS is really laying the groundwork and central banks will step into cryptocurrency. and that it will be a lot safer. Now, I'm not expecting that'll knock off any of the Bitcoins or Ethereum or whatever, but it will be a competitor. And I think that's going to be a really interesting space to watch.
I think it will knock it off. During the week, Michelle Bullock, who's one of the senior reserve bankers, actually talked about central bank digital currencies. The Bank of England's spoken about central bank digital currencies. I don't think there's any doubt that they will eventually set them up because they are much more practical for a digital world, and they also allow central banks to somewhat keep control of those currencies. Why? There's a market for Bitcoin because people want to buy and sell them, right? Quite irrelevant whether you can use it for a can of Coke or, with a host or Tesla. But there's a market. When you've got a buyer and seller, there's a market. It's like an artwork. There's a market if someone wants to buy and sell it. So I do, though, think that market will actually dissipate once central bank digital currencies are introduced because people can use that. Now, outside the black market, I still don't know what cryptocurrencies I see their benefits, but I don't know outside the black market why anyone would use those over central bank digital currencies. So I think you're right. I think Benoit Coué, the head of the Bank for International Settlements Innovation Hub, I agree. I think it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, it's going to be a big shift, isn't it, Sean? Now, let me ask you, based on my qualifying question, did you buy into cryptos about a year ago?
No.
And Michael?
No, I did not.
Okay, well, let's see where you fall on the side of this debate.
Well, I actually just wanted to share one little interesting piece of trivia.
I love it, Michael, how you like to bring it back to
things that people want to hear.
That's right. That's right.
Well, when Adam, about 25 minutes ago, you mentioned Mia Mottley, the Barbados Prime Minister, we included a link to her speech, to her COP26 speech in the Fear and Greed Daily newsletter. And I think we did it on the assumption that this is, and we emphasize that this is something that everybody needs to hear, the speech that she made to COP26. Do you know what our most clicked on piece of content from our newsletter was that day? It was not the Mia Mottley speech from COP26. It was the list of the top 5 funniest X-ray images featuring somebody with a Buzz Lightyear stuck somewhere.
Oh, you appeal to a diverse audience.
Where was Buzz Lightyear?
I'm calling it Hawaii.
Hang on, do we have 2 safe words?
We do. As long as we get one of them out there. One of the stories I thought this week, which was really interesting, and this is a more serious note, Treasury Wine Estates came out and said it would provide domestic violence and family violence leave for its employees, in that case up to 10 days in a year and up to $5,000 in cash to help people in those situations. Commonwealth Bank, Westpac, BHP, Rio Tinto, Telstra, they've all done it. When I was working within a big corporate at Fairfax, certainly the union movement was pushing that. And I think the trade union movement have done a wonderful job in getting it instated into a bunch of big corporates, so you can only support that. What I did think about it, though, when Treasury Wine Estates came out and made an announcement that they were providing it, all credit to them, but isn't it a shame that we live in a society that is needed?
Oh, it's rotten.
Yeah. And I think the benefit, though, of the leave being introduced is that people are talking about it as well.
Yeah.
That it's not one of these things that is just kind of an issue that no one discusses. That even the fact that we're discussing it now means that this is no longer kind of a silent hidden crime. That it's something that is hopefully becoming a greater focus for everybody. But I completely agree. It is heartbreaking that it is even needed.
Yeah.
The shock is underpinning that, of course, is just how prevalent it is.
Yep.
And to your point, both of you, that we're relatively silent on it in terms of the broad media discussion. But this helps. It has to help. But it is ultimately, treating a symptom of an awful problem.
Yep. Mickey T, I have a question for you.
Yes, Sean.
Every day we talk, you and I, and we discuss the big stories. Just before we start, you always go, I'll check my microphone. 1, 2, looks good. You know, when it's audio, wouldn't you think that it should sound good, not look good?
Well, Sean,
Don't give me any technical stuff about, funny lines on computers.
no, I can't hear myself when I'm doing that. I'm relying on being able to see it being recorded on the screen. So it's a really simple explanation. And I know that this was a blatant attempt to kind of trap me in something like the infamous waving at birds incident of a few weeks ago. But no, I'm getting out of this one with a completely legitimate explanation.
Sean, can I just ask a question? Not on Michael's behalf, but would it be the case, given your question, that you've never recorded any one of our podcasts in your life?
What do you mean never recorded any of our podcasts?
Do you know where the record button is situated?
I've been in every podcast we've done.
No, but you haven't recorded them. You haven't
Apologies
actually
for
hit the
not
button,
pushing the
checked
button.
the levels, watched to make sure that the audio levels are good, and then edited it afterwards.
Can you not hear yourself speaking at the moment, Adam?
Yeah, I can.
Michael?
Yes.
Right.
But what you can't do is make sure that the quality of the recording is there because you can't see the levels. So that's what Michael's doing when he checks the levels. It's something that, we as the mere mortals in this podcasting exchange have to do the recording.
Hawaii, Benoit. It's backfired.
It started to go downhill shortly after you started, I think.
Yeah, I know.
I think it was never going to end well.
I like the idea that audio, you're looking at levels for an audio, which is a sound thing. That's what always just amuses me slightly.
This technology thing, hey? Remarkable.
Can I mention a story that really kind of stood out to me this week? And it was one that you brought up on the Daily Show, Sean. And it was about companies that don't actually make a profit.
Yeah.
Because I thought this was really interesting that, and it was from MST Marquee Research, that out of the 300 companies on the ASX 300, obviously, there are about 48 of those that don't actually make a profit. They've got a market cap of around $200 billion. And it really got me thinking. And you said at the time, Sean, that people are really hoping for another Amazon, who had obviously loss after loss after loss, and now look at it, making extraordinary profits, and the share price is absolutely soaring.
Tesla's the same deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked on the Sunday show last week about how
You're an excellent investor.
I lack a natural instinct for investing in equities, shall we say. But you do try and make up for it with research. About 4 or 5 years ago, I invested a sum in a company that I thought had terrific prospects. The only downside was that it wasn't making a profit. Here we are, 4 or 5 years later, it still hasn't made a profit. Its share price has more than halved since I bought it. But still, I am the eternal optimist. One day this company is going to come good, and I will retire, and then the Sunday show will just be Sean Aylmer and Adam Lang.
You mean you're not doing this for love, Michael?
Yeah.
That's a whack.
No, that's not what I meant at all. I'm Benoit.
Okay.
Companies that don't make money tend not to make money in the future as well. That report was really interesting because whilst you do occasionally get, there's a lot of investment that goes into startups, but by the time they list on the exchange, and if you're buying into them, mostly you should expect that they're making money by that point.
Yeah. And look, and this was an error that I have not repeated since then. I think I got blinded by what I could see as a glittering future for this company. And look, it could still glitter. It's just a little more dull, I suspect, than what I once hoped. And thank you, Sean, though, for the reminder of that through the week, of the fact that every day, whenever I check to see how my portfolio is going, I'm just carrying this hefty loss.
All about tax losses. Adamski, are you really happy that the politicians are back in Canberra?
Oh, no.
Okay, moving on.
Good answer. And even that had 4 pages of notes on it.
No, I'm not. But, it certainly does add to the content mix, doesn't it? And there are some really important discussions going on.
Yeah, and some really silly discussions as well. I mean, the point we made during the week was that there's been pretty solid bipartisanship throughout the last 18 months around COVID. We're emerging from COVID. We are about to head into an election, probably, well, certainly next year, and probably sort of May next year. The Prime
It's got
Minister
to be by May, yeah.
It's got to be by May, and the Prime Minister's indicated he'd do a budget in May ahead of the federal election. So let's say it's 6 months and gloves are off again. We got a new Speaker of the House this week. He'll have his hands full trying to manage both sides. And clearly the opposition think that they can damage the government around how much you trust Scott Morrison. Because throughout the week there was lots of jibes at Scott Morrison's honesty. And it's an interesting tack, I think, from the opposition to actually pick on a Prime Minister's honesty. I suppose the thing, the other side of that is Anthony Albanese, like him or not, most people think he's fairly honest. I'm not sure that Bill Shorten had that attribute. What do you think, Adamski?
I think definitely playing the person always comes into politics, and people, have varying levels of interest in elections and in politics in general. I think there's a lot of wariness, but this is a different one given the last couple of years that we've gone through. And I think the fact that this Hawaii story came up with the Prime Minister again this week was an indication of just how the politics is upping the ante now towards the election. This is them really starting to lay into character, as in them being Labor, laying into the character of the Prime Minister. And there's no question that he's got a couple of points to answer on that, whether it be the French subs deal or indeed, his holiday or whatever it might be. So I think it's a nasty game, but it's the one that they're going to play, and we're going to hear a lot more of it between now and May.
I've lost count now of the number of times I have seen the footage of Emmanuel Macron saying, "I don't think I know," when he was asked whether Scott Morrison lied to him. So you can only imagine in Labor Party HQ, when that footage emerged, they would have just been rubbing their hands together with glee, because that is a gift that you don't often get from a world leader heading into an election campaign that Labor is now able to use, and just keep applying that same message every week to a new example. And there will be, politics always generates opportunities and examples where you can question somebody's integrity. But now they've got the framework, and it really did, I think, come from that interaction with the French president.
It's going to be a very long 6 months, boys.
It certainly is.
That's about it for this morning. Thank you very much for listening to Fear and Greed, the Sunday edition. Michael, thank you for your contributions today.
Thank you, Sean.
Adamski, thank you for yours.
Thank you, Sean.
It's Sunday, the 28th of November, 2021. I'm Sean Aylmer. We hope you enjoyed the show and have a great Sunday.